When I was just over 20, I suddenly began to feel a painful emptiness and confusion. It seemed that everything was going according to a script written by others for me. My parents dreamed of a great career for me. Friends advised me to fit in. Teachers loaded me with theories of success. I enrolled in a prestigious university, took extra courses, and kept a long list of obligations in my head every day. Be grateful, purposeful, useful. But the harder I tried, the more I felt there was no joy or warmth inside me, only anxiety, fatigue, and the sense of playing someone else's role. An identity crisis sneaked up on me quietly. It doesn't begin with one question, but with a million small doubts that grow day by day. My internal dialogues became sharper and sharper. I caught myself thinking that all my achievements only brought joy to my parents, but not to me. I went to meetings, smiled in company, but came home utterly drained. Somewhere in the silence of the night, I would ask myself, who is this girl in the mirror? Why is she following someone else's path? It seemed to me that I was living in a scenario not written by me, and even my dreams were just reactions to others' expectations. Psychologists call this state alienated adaptation. A person who grows up in should mode is very bad at recognizing their own desires. They are afraid to make mistakes, to disappoint, to fall out of the stream of the right people. For me, this meant constant anxiety, low self-esteem, and a sense of chronic loneliness even when around others. I started keeping a diary, writing down my thoughts. It was an attempt to hear myself through the noise of other people's advice and demands. The first time I openly told my mother that I didn't know what I wanted, she reacted like most parents. She started coming up with new options for me, offering her tried and tested solutions. I felt like her project. Even her care and support became instructions. Inside, something important, almost primal, was resisting this advice, the desire just to be myself, even if that didn't line up with someone else's ideal. I started looking for information, articles, psychology books, forums. Almost every source repeated the same advice: try something new, get out of your comfort zone. I signed up for art classes, even though I was afraid I'd quit again. I went to the movies alone, started a small blog, participated in charity events. The initial results weren't magical. I still felt tired, my desires still confused, and the inner conflict didn't resolve right away. At some point I realized that the path of self-discovery isn't an ecstatic rush but a series of tough decisions. Psychologists say that a person can truly come into their own only through honestly living out the dark night of the soul. That's the time when supports collapse, old beliefs die, and new ones haven't yet been formed. In those periods, I felt a mixed palette of emotions: anger, fear, self-pity, regret, loneliness. The hardest part was giving myself permission to be weak, imperfect, and lost without shame. I started practicing inner dialogue, honestly asking myself, why am I so afraid to disappoint others? What fears come from my childhood? Turned out, my life was full of imposed values. A sense of duty, shame at mistakes, a desire to control everything. Self-determination required re-examining these settings, changing should to can. The most dramatic crisis happened at night. After a difficult day I woke up anxious and couldn't get back to sleep. My mind was filled with endless lists, plans, voices of other people. I went out alone, just to walk in the dark quiet. For the first time, I felt that inside, only my real voice remained. It was quiet, but very important. I wrote in my notebook, "I don't need to save the world, it's enough to save myself." Then work with a psychologist began. The first session was painful. I don't know who I am, what I want, or why I live. I was told, "You don't need to devalue this state. In an identity crisis, a true personality is born." We worked with the inner child, learning to recognize old fears, permitting myself to be different from what my parents wanted. The psychotherapist recommended Frankl's books. His thoughts on meaning and suffering changed a lot for me. I realized, you can't find meaning immediately, it develops even in small steps into the unknown. At the same time, I tried changing my circle of contacts. I broke old ties, gradually allowed new acquaintances. It became easier when I stopped being afraid of loneliness. Loneliness now served as a mirror. I could hear myself, see my emotions, and decide what's important and what doesn't belong. Once, at a meeting with like-minded people, I shared my story of searching for myself. Suddenly, I found that the feeling of confusion wasn't unique at all. Everyone here had experienced something similar: the fear of being unnecessary, the search for new meaning, the escape from others' expectations. We supported each other, learning to talk honestly about our doubts and fears. A major shift happened when I stopped pressuring myself to find my true calling. Instead, I simply allowed myself to be different every day, to try, to fail, to enjoy small successes, not to be ashamed of weakness. A new outlook on life took shape. Identity is not a mountain I climb for the sake of the peak, but a process that changes me slowly. I started practicing mindfulness more, being present in the moment, watching my thoughts without judgment. The book Flow helped me understand that happiness doesn't live in the future or in right mystifications, it's rooted in what interests you right now. Writing letters to myself became very meaningful. I wrote down what an ideal life looks like just for me, not in someone else's terms, but in my own small joys. Rereading after months, I saw there were fewer fears, more confidence and acceptance appeared. I allowed myself not to know the answers to who am I, counting the search as a merit, not a flaw. Gradually, I found my own answers. I can be myself, even if I don't live up to someone's expectations. I know how to disappoint, to break old roots, to change jobs, to find new friends, to be alone with myself and not see it as a failure. The search for myself is not a sprint, but a marathon. Sometimes you're thrown into loneliness, sometimes close friends help you piece together the puzzle of your identity. It's important in the process to separate imposed values from your own. I mechanically went to some events just not to be the odd one out, but now I choose what truly makes me happy. It's the small things: creativity, walks, new books, warm conversation, the opportunity to build my own habits without fear of judgment. There were new crises, too. Sometimes it seemed the path to myself was too hard, someone else's script simpler, loneliness dangerous. I went back to the psychologist, worked through my anxieties. Each year it got easier to let go of the old and accept the new. I realized that an identity crisis isn't a catastrophe, but a necessary stage in growing up. Inside each person is a multitude of roles, fears, desires. The more honestly you recognize them, the stronger you become. I learned not to chase myself, but to support myself. To allow myself to make mistakes, to disappoint, to change direction. Little by little, all these steps turned into the chance to be alive, real, imperfect. My favorite books became my foundation of support. Frankl, in his books, teaches you to find meaning even in pain. Rogers, to accept yourself unconditionally. Mlodik, to work through internal conflicts without fear. Csikszentmihalyi, to enjoy little things and stay in flow. Elrod inspired me with new morning routines. All this helps you look back once a week, to see growth. Now I rarely ask, who should I be? It's more important to me, who can I be today? I'm learning to see not an ideal, but a living heart in myself. I would advise others to watch themselves like the hero of their own story, not to run from discomfort, but to take steps within. Even if those around don't understand or fear change. If you're going through an identity crisis right now, know that it's not the end, it's the beginning of real life. Almost every adult goes through this, sometimes hiding it, sometimes living it aloud. Don't be afraid to be weak, ask for support if you need it. An identity crisis is a start toward a new, more alive, more meaningful you, finding meaning in every day. Thank you for reading and walking this path. Share your story, write letters to yourself, look for your place not by the pattern, but by the call of your heart. All you need is to be honest with yourself, to let change happen, to keep faith even in the hardest moments. Because meaning always appears where we allow ourselves to truly be ourselves.